I'm Garrett, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the actual impacts that the increase in minimum wage would have on the economy. And I'm not talking about the state minimum wage, I'm talking about the federal minimum wage. What you all might not know is that the actual federal minimum wage right now is $7.25, which was set in 2009. Right now in California, our minimum wage is $10.50. Kind of a discrepancy there. There is a law in effect that you can change the minimum wage in a state if you feel that it's necessary. They're called cost of living adjustments, stuff like that. Well, did you know that in 1978, a full-time worker working 40 hours a week and a part-time student at the same time could pay for a full year tuition at any college you wanted to and still have change left over? That actually is true. It came from politifact.com. And today I'm going to talk to you about how it actually would hurt the economy more than it would help the economy. Well, right now only 2-3% of the total population makes the actual minimum wage of $7.25. Closer to 29.5% make upwards of like $14 an hour, based on the state that they live in, what the minimum wage of the state is, and what they are getting paid at their job. Like In-N-Out workers, they make upwards of $14 an hour. So raising the federal minimum wage, not any other state minimum wage, to $15 an hour, which is what people want, would actually hurt those workers, the 29.5%, a lot more than it would hurt the people that are only making minimum wage, which is around 2-3%. So it's 35 million, which is the 29.5% of the entire labor force, to like 18.9 million people. There's kind of a big discrepancy there. And if I were to give you a textbook example of how the economy would be affected, all the low-skilled labor is bought in markets just like we buy goods at the store. That is the labor market and the market for goods and services. They're two separate entities. Well, the $7.25 set by the federal government is the price floor. They put it over the equilibrium, which is the natural wage rate that should be being paid to people. They set the price floor above the equilibrium to make sure that we don't distort the market. Make it so that there's a surplus of workers and not as much demand for the labor. If we raise it past the $7.25 minimum wage and we raise it up to the $15, there's going to be the surplus of labor, there's going to be higher unemployment, and then people are going to be getting laid off and all that stuff, and jobs are going to disappear, and technological advances might not happen. And in conclusion, I wanted to end with another statistic, which is somewhere here. Can't seem to find a flashcard for it, I'm sorry. But in conclusion, with all the statistics and stuff that you've seen, it would actually hurt the economy more than it would help the economy to raise the minimum wage to $15.
So Josh, share your thoughts.
Overall, it's pretty
clear, like what the point you're making. I like how you distinguished federal and state minimum wage. How you're talking about the federal, $7.25, and you clearly stated that you are you don't want it's raised, like it's detrimental to our economy. So I definitely got that. I thought the preview was pretty clear, and everything was pretty much like given out. Like you explained everything pretty well. Only thing is the conclusion, trying to say to conclude, it's like that flashy act it was talking about. And then maybe just be a little more prepared with the card so you have your, just the last thing left me, I kind of want to hear the stat, but since I haven't, kind of left me at all. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty straightforward speech, pretty good.
Okay, well, you basically start with just the subject matter, and there's not much of an attention device, although kind of after you introduce that, you do come up with a detention device that has a quote about what the wage rate was, or the minimum wage rate was in 1975 versus now. And it's kind of odd because that quote seems to be going the opposite direction of the position that you're taking. So I was a little bit confused exactly about what you were saying. It wasn't until you got into the speech and made your point about how this is going to disrupt the process and have a bigger impact on a larger number of people that I understood clearly that you think an increase in the minimum wage is problematic. And that should be, something that's not that ambiguous at the beginning of the speech. So I was listening to your argument at first. It sounded like that was the direction you were going. Then you gave the quote, and it sounds like you're going the opposite direction. And then we come back to that point, and it felt a little bit like, okay, well, I can kind of see where you're going at that point. I think there needs to be a little bit stronger structure. There's a lot of theoretical material about economics being presented here as it is explained reasonably well. I like the whole discussion that you had, for instance, the price floor there toward the end and how it kind of distorts the marketplace to some degree and has this consequence. But we don't get much data on how it's had that impact or who's been harmed by it. We don't get any visualizations. I mean, if that example that you were presenting earlier about the ability to pay for your tuition has changed dramatically, is that because the tuition has gone up so much, or is it that because the minimum wage has stayed relatively stagnant in relationship to what costs are? We don't get any discussion of that, and I think this would be one of those places where you get the story of students struggling or people not able to get a job because they've been priced out of the marketplace would be a little bit helpful. You mentioned the in-and-out workers and other people who are working above the minimum wage and how they might be negatively affected by a change in the minimum wage, and there needs to be an explanation of what the consequence to them is. Does it reduce the value of their particular labor if there's a higher minimum wage because there's a smaller differential between what they're making and what the price floor is going to be? Is it going to put additional pressure on employers to increase the wages of those people and potentially threaten their jobs? I think that these are all concepts that are in your arguments somewhere, but they're not as clearly explained as they needed to be. And the structure, I thought, was part of the problem on that. There's also a lot of, like I said, theory without the follow-up data to go along with it, and I think you needed more of that. Presentation issues. You're doing a pretty good job. Obviously, you got stuck at the end losing your notes and not being able to finish off as clearly as you might like. The speech doesn't quite make the halfway point for the kind of target range that we were looking at, so it's a little short in regard to that. So there's lots of room to include additional material. But you do speak up, you talk to us for the most part, so there's nothing that you're doing that is particularly bad when it comes to the presentation stuff. Maybe a little bit more enthusiasm, but I don't see that there's an issue that with the delivery. I think it's that you need the content, the emotional content to go with that delivery to make it work for you. All right, thank you.